because grief is affecting a lot of people, then my focus is going to be on the stages of grief so that you can understand exactly what occurs. Now, one of the things about the stages of grief is that grief doesn't just occur linear. And linear means that one thing happened, then the next thing happened, then the next thing happened. People experience grief in their own particular way. And so, even though I'm going in order with the stages of grief, there's 5 stages that's represented here. Even though I am going through the 5 stages of grief, know that any stage can affect a person at any point in time, or they may not experience all of the stages of grief. So I'm going to begin with the first stage, and then I'm going to give you an example of what someone may say as far as being in this particular stage. And so the first stage is denial. And the person may say, this can't be happening. The next stage is anger. The person may say, why is this happening to me? The next stage is bargaining. And the person may say, I will do anything to change this. The next stage is depression. And what the person may say is, what's the point of going on after this loss? Let me repeat that. What's the point of going on after this loss? And then the final stage is acceptance. I know what happened and I can't change it. Now I need to cope. So these are the 5 stages of grief. And even though I made statements describing what a person may say, people say different things, and their behavior is often different than you know it. When it is within the first 6 months after the loss of a loved one, then we characterize it as just normal grief. We don't attribute a diagnosis to normal grief. This is the bereavement period, up to 6 months. But after 6 months, if the person haven't reached the stage of acceptance, I know that this has happened. I can't change it. Now I need to cope. If the person is not coping, then we move the category from normal grief to major depressive episode first. And then if it's ongoing, we recategorize it again and we call it major depressive disorder. And if it's prolonged, we call it prolonged bereavement or chronic bereavement. And so that's what I want you to understand as far as grief. So for the first 6 months, you can still talk to a therapist if you need to cope with any situation related to the death of a loved one. However, we just consider this normal. Now, there are times when a person may already have a psychiatric disorder like major depressive going on with them already, and they have already been classified as an individual with major depression disorder. Then that disorder still exists. However, the grief is compounding that particular disorder. And so the person may have behaviors that are not the normal behavior for that individual. So that's all I need to say about the stages of grief.